a permutation. So we wanted a permutation pi such that the average cost with respect to that permutation is minimized. Our solution was fairly simple. So we would just sort the files according to their file sizes in ascending order. Okay, and we output the permutation corresponding to that sorted order. That is what permutation you need to apply so that the array becomes sorted in ascending order. We just output that. So because that is the ordering in which files have to be stored, or in other words, you store the files in the ascending order of their file sizes. That is a solution. Okay. So yeah, we were looking at correctness. So yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I hope everybody is clear with the definition of the cost of a permutation. Okay, so maybe I'll just write it here. So C pi k summation I equal to 1 to k s of pi I. Okay, that is, you imagine the file is arranged with respect to the permutation pi, and then look at the first k elements, add their sizes. That's exactly the access time for kth file with respect to that ordering. Okay, now we just give it a name. So the cost of storing the files in the order according to pi is basically sum of all c pi k for all positions or for all files, and then you average, that is 1 by n. Okay, so when you want to minimize this, you can ignore this 1 by n. It does not play a role while minimizing, so you can just say as well minimize this. So our claim now is, if pi is an ascending order with respect to the file size, remember that if the file sizes are not the same, I mean, if there are files with the same size, multiple files with the same size, then permutations could be multiple. Okay, permutations which correspond to ascending order could be multiple. Otherwise, the permutation is unique. So the claim is the following. So we made this claim yesterday, so I've just rewritten it. For any array of n elements and any permutation pi such that cost pi is minimum, we must have that. If you arrange the array elements with respect to pi, it should be sorted. That is, for every I, s of pi I is less than or equal to s of pi I plus 1. Okay, that is, the array s pi 1, s pi 2, etc. s pi n is sorted in ascending order. Okay, so that was a claim that we were proving yesterday. Any questions on that part? Okay. So we'll come to the argument. So we started with a permutation. So the argument is called a swap argument. It's essentially swap two elements and ensure, I mean, show that you'll get a smaller cost permutation. Okay. So consider some arbitrary permutation. So we'll assume that the array with respect to this permutation is not sorted in ascending order. Okay. So let's consider the following set. Let's call it as inversions of sigma. Okay. So it is set of all pairs I, j, such that I is less than j, I and j are in 1 to n. But if you look at the corresponding positions with respect to the permutation, that is s in the array, that is s of sigma I and s of sigma j, they are out of place. Okay. So that is I is less than j. So if the array was in sorted order, it should be that s of sigma I is less than or equal to s of sigma j, right? Now we are saying it is not the case. That is, it's an inversion. So I'll demonstrate with an example. Okay. So let's take array with elements say 6, 4, 7, 3, 9. Okay. Now, so this is the sigma. Okay. So this is sigma. So inversions are, so the original array was something else. I mean, some permutation of this. Okay, so I'm only considering sigma. So if you apply sigma on the array, this is how it looks like. So S sigma 1, S sigma 2, etc., etc. Now, what are the inversions? Can somebody help me? So all ij such that I less than j, but the corresponding positions in the array should be violating the sorted order property. So let's take index by index. So 1, 2. Is it an inversion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It is an inversion, right? 6 is greater than 4, right? So it is an inversion. So 1, 2 is an inversion. 1, 3, is it an inversion?
No.
No, right? 6 is less than 7. So 1, 4, is it an inversion?
Yes.
Yes, so it's an inversion. Is it clear why? Because 6 is greater than 3. Now, so 1, 5 is greater than 6. Now, 2, 3, is it an inversion? No. 2, 4, it's an inversion. 2, 4. And 2, 5 is not an inversion. Again, 3, 4 is an inversion. So these are the inversions. Okay, so inversions with respect to this ordering of the array is basically this 4. So yesterday I did the I mean, see, that is also subset of inversions or successive inversions. I had written I plus 1. Okay, so unfortunately that is not enough for our argument. Okay, I'll tell you why. Okay, so okay, so yeah, is it clear, the definition of inversion to everybody? Okay, if there is no question, we'll move ahead. Okay, so yeah. So now in the array, just choose some index such that sigma I, array at sigma I is greater than sigma I plus 1. Okay. So among this, you choose some, see, since the array is not sorted, right, there should be some element. Okay. So when you say array is not sorted, so this essentially means that there exists an I such that S of sigma I is greater than S of sigma I plus 1. That is by the definition of sorting, right? Yeah, so we have considered a larger set of inversions, okay? And certainly there will be such an inversion in this set, right? So there will always be a position I such that I plus 1 is in the inversion set. Otherwise, the array will be sorted by the transitivity of this ordering. So less than or equal to is a transitive order, right? It's a partial order. It's a transitive relation. So is that clear? Because if for every I, S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma I plus 1, then for every I less than j, S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma j. Okay, simply by transitivity. So we'll always have such an element. So what are the candidate elements here? So 1, 2 or 3, 4. Okay, so let's take 3, 4. Okay, so for this example, so let's take 3, 4. So let me see. For the example 3, 4. Say I equal to 3 in the example. Okay. So now all we do is we define a new permutation by just swapping those positions. Okay. So let me
Hello,
redraw the array here. Yes. Yeah.
sir. Can you explain how you are using transitivity to get I plus 1 relation?
So see, for every I, if S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma I plus 1, right? Now you consider any I less than j. I claim that S of sigma I is less than, maybe I'll use this space, okay? So, okay, so one observation. Suppose I'll just write it formally. Suppose S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma I plus 1 for all I. Okay. So then S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma j for all I less than j. Why is that? It's a simple argument. So S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma I plus 1. It is less than or equal to S of sigma I plus 2, and so on. It's less than or equal to S of sigma j. Now apply the transitivity. So since the relation is transitive, so S of sigma I is less than or equal to S of sigma j. Is that clear? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it clear now? Yeah. So that is how you get from transitivity. Okay. So this condition is enough. I mean, that is what we do in sorting, right? I mean, essentially, we need to ensure that there is no successive inversions. Okay. So, but for our argument, we'll have to consider. So, what I considered yesterday was incorrect. I'll tell you why very soon. Okay. So, yeah. So, this is the inversion set we need to consider. And this is a set of all inversions. Yesterday, what we had was successive inversions. Okay. Yeah, so now the rest of the argument is very similar. Nothing is. I mean, it's pretty much the same. Okay. So you consider a position which is out of order. Okay. That is sigma I. S of sigma I is greater than, or it should be greater than. So greater than S of sigma I plus 1. Okay. Now all I do is I just swap. So I just redraw the array here. So let's write the array here. So 6, 4, 7, 3, 9. This is sigma. Now what is sigma prime? So I said, what was the position? Did I say 3, 4, right? So I be 3. Okay, so I is 3. So if I swap these two, what do I get? Sigma prime will correspond to 6, 4, 3, 7, 9. Okay, so this is the swapping. Okay, is it clear what is sigma prime? Clear? Yeah. Was there any question? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So now let us see what is, so with this definition of sigma prime, we saw that the cost reduces. Okay. So first let us, let's just go over it very quickly. Okay. So I hope I have convinced everybody. So then cost of sigma prime is less than cost of sigma. So why was that? So cost of sigma prime was basically so C sigma 1 plus etc. C sigma I minus 1 plus etc. C sigma I plus 1 plus etc. plus C sigma n plus, so what is for I? So for I it was C sigma I minus C sigma I plus 1 minus, sorry, I'm sorry, this is not correct. So what was the difference in cost when you swap? Okay, so let's ignore this line. Okay, I'll come to this line. Let's ignore this line. So let's do the computation fully. Maybe that's simpler. Okay, so what is cost of sigma? C sigma 1 plus etc. plus C sigma n. Cost of sigma prime C sigma prime 1 plus etc. C sigma prime n. Okay, so let's just look at what changes occur when you consider sigma prime instead of sigma. Okay, so up to I minus 1, the cost remains the same, right? Because the array is unchanged. At position I, it has changed now. So what is the difference? So instead of adding 7 to C sigma 2, we are adding 3. So what is the difference in value? Which is minus 4, which is the difference between 7 and 3, but a negative value of it. That is 3 minus 7. Okay, but when you consider this position up to here, what is the total cost? Sum of these values, two values are the same, right? It does not change. It does not change any further. So only at location I it differs. So it differs by how much? So this is equal to, sorry, C sigma prime 1 plus etc. plus C sigma prime I minus 1 plus, so what is at position I? It is, sorry, why should I have prime here? Very sorry. Okay, I'll just take out all this. This is the same as C sigma 1 plus etc. C sigma I minus 1 plus at position I, we'll see what it is. C sigma I plus 1 plus etc. plus C sigma n. Is that clear to everyone? So up to position I minus 1, there is no change in the array. So that costs will all be the same for all those positions. At position I, there is a change. But after position I, that is position I plus 1 onwards, again the total elements, the sum that you take will be the same. There is only one local swap here. But if you consider any further, it is going to be the same. So hence, I would just write C sigma I plus 1 etc. C sigma. Now here, what is the difference? We saw what was the difference, right? So the difference is basically you take the smaller value and subtract the larger value from it. So that is C sigma I, C sigma I plus S sigma I plus 1 minus S sigma I. This is it. Okay. This is a negative value. So this is less than C sigma I. So in this case, it was minus 4 because the difference between these two elements was 4. Okay. So in general, it is S sigma I plus 1 minus S sigma I. Okay. Because remember that S sigma I plus 1 was a smaller value compared to S sigma I. So this is a negative value. Okay. So hence this is less than cost of sigma. Okay. So this part was clear yesterday itself, that the cost reduces when you consider swapping. Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, I'm not understanding why it is C sigma I plus S sigma I plus 1 minus S sigma I.
Yeah, so this is the difference, right? This is the reduction. So you can just check. So let's look at this example. Okay. So for C sigma I, so we were adding, so C sigma 3, we were adding 7 to C sigma 2, right? Now if you change this, what were you adding? So you are adding 3 to C sigma I minus 1, C sigma 2, right? So what is the difference? So the difference is minus 4. So instead of adding 7, you are adding 3. So it is minus 4. So you subtract this value from this. I mean, subtract this value from this. That is 3 minus 7. That is the difference, right? So that difference is what we are writing it here. Okay. So instead of adding sigma I, I'm adding S sigma I plus 1. So then what is the cost difference? The original value, which is C sigma I, plus the difference between these two, that is the new element, which is S sigma I plus 1 minus S sigma I. Okay, so that is it. And this is a negative value because of this assumption that S sigma I is greater than S sigma I plus 1. as S sigma I is greater than S sigma I plus 1. Okay. Good.
Sir,
Yeah. Yeah.
sir, can you please go back to the previous example when Pranay asked the doubt? No?
Yes. This one, right?
Sir, yes, sir. So here in sigma prime,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is you are putting back 3 and 7, right? And then you took the difference. I still did not understand like what you were
No,
trying
so
to do.
what were our costs, right? So cost for a position I, what was it? Is basically sum of elements in that order up to position I, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at, so this is our position I. I'm sorry. This is our position I. This is I plus 1. Okay. So this is
Yes.
I plus 1. So up to position I minus 1, the costs are the same. Do you agree with
Yes.
that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So at only at position I, there is a difference.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, from position I plus 1 onwards, it's the same, right? The cost is the same. Do you also agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. It's like after I plus 1, it is the same.
Yeah, including I plus 1. At I plus 1 itself, it is the same. Because if you add up to I plus 1, right, the set of elements being added is the same. We didn't change anything, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
We only changed the relative position of 3 and 7.
Yes, yes.
So only at position I, the cost is, there is a difference. So here it was C sigma I minus 1 plus S sigma I. Here it is C sigma I minus 1 plus S of sigma I plus 1.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference in those values now?
Okay.
Yeah, it is nothing but S of sigma I plus 1 minus
Yes,
S of sigma I. That's it.
yes, sir. It will
Correct, no?
Yes.
So only that position, there is a difference. That difference is this number. And this number is negative because of this assumption. S of sigma I is greater than S of sigma I plus 1.
Yes, sir.
So hence, cost of sigma prime must be less than cost of sigma. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So what we have done is from permutation sigma, we have obtained a new permutation sigma prime whose cost is less than the original permutation, that is sigma. Now what do we achieve? So why is this good enough? So this argument is called swap argument. Okay. So you swap two elements, you get a smaller cost array. That is an ordering whose cost is smaller. That is, if you store files according to that order, the cost is smaller. Now, why does it prove our statement? So what we wanted is the one that minimizes should be the ascending order. Okay. So there could be multiple ascending orders. So any of the ascending orders will have the same cost. Okay. So now for that, so we need to so how do we formally argue? Okay, so if you look at the textbook, it will just say, okay, repeatedly apply this argument. Okay, so like I mentioned in yesterday's lecture, the source for this lecture is Jeff Erickson's book. So if you look at the proof, right, there are just 4 lines of the proof. So book will just say repeatedly apply this, so you'll get a sorted order. Okay, so at least the next 20 minutes I'm going to spend this only for this topic. Further, I'll just make arguments very similar to the textbook only. But you should know that why we need much more rigorous statements to complete the arguments given in those textbooks. Okay, but once you know it, it's always a standard procedure. So that is why it's enough to do it for one example. Okay. Okay. So here is when we are going to use our definition of inversions. Okay. So the first claim is the number of inversions of sigma prime is less than number of inversions of sigma. So can somebody, if you remember, can you tell me the number of inversions in the original array and sigma prime? So inversion of sigma. So what was it? What was the set? 1, 2,
4.
1. Yeah, 4, right? Cardinality was 4. But what was the set? 1, 4, 2, 4, and 3, 4. Was that right? Was I right?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Okay, good. So now what is inversion of sigma prime? If you want me to go back, I can go back. So what are the inversions? 1 2 stays.
1 2 and 3 4.
Yeah. So 1 2 stays. 1 4 becomes 1 3 now, and then 2 3 now. Right? 2 3 is a new inversion. So 1 2 1 3 and 2 3. Is that right? So what has happened? So the number of inversions has gone down. So number of inversions in sigma is 1 less than number of inversions in sigma. Is that clear to everybody? Why is that happening? So let us look at this, okay? So let us look at I and I plus 1. So remember that this was an inversion, okay? So what are the other inversions that we have, or what are the other inversions that will be affected? Okay, so all we did was we were swapping. Okay, so when we swap, what are the inversions it will affect? You can see it in this example itself. How the inversions were affected. So 1 2 stayed, right? 1 2 stayed, but 1 4 didn't stay. What did it become? It became 1 3. So 1 4 was what? So 1 4 was 6 and 3. Now 3 came to from position I plus 1, which is 4 to 3. So now it became 1 3. Inversion became 1 3. Okay. And so 2 3. So 2 3 was not present, but where did it originate from? It was corresponding to 2 4, right? 2 4 became 2 3. So can we summarize what changes happen? All inversions of the form, say I comma j, okay, now they will become I plus 1 comma j. All inversions of the form, I'm just orally saying, I hope it is clear, okay, I'm not writing it down here. All inversions of the form k comma I will now be k comma I plus 1, and similarly for I plus 1. So all inversions of the form I plus 1 comma j will now become I comma j. All inversions of the form k comma I plus 1 will now become I plus 1 comma k, except one. What is it? There's an one exception to it.
I plus 1.
I plus 1. That is the only thing that gets short out. Okay. So I plus 1, which is 3 4 in this example, it's no more an inversion. So if you remove I plus 1, there is a bijection, that is a 1-to-1 correspondence between the inversions in inversions of sigma as well as inversions of sigma prime. Okay, with the suitable relabeling of the indices. Only that relabeling happens only when one of the indices is I or I plus 1. Then you suitably permute them accordingly. That is, I is replaced with I plus 1, I plus 1 is replaced with I. Only thing is, when the inversion is I plus 1, it's no more an inversion because we swapped, right? Because S of sigma I is now less than or equal to, sigma prime I is less than or equal to S of sigma prime I plus 1, whereas S of sigma I is greater than S of sigma I plus 1. Okay, so hence the number of inversions in sigma prime is exactly 1 less than number of inversions in sigma. Okay, so the number of inversions goes down. So if you look at it carefully, right, I mean, this is exactly the argument that we give for bubble sort for the correctness. I'm not sure if you have seen it. If you want to prove correctness of bubble sort, right, so every time it basically eliminates the successive inversions, right, it successively swaps. So when you swap I with I plus 1, if they are out of place, that is, if their relative ordering is out of place, that means number of inversions goes down. Okay, it's exactly the same condition. So now usually in textbooks or in most of the people will just say, now repeating the argument on sigma prime. Okay, so you now take sigma prime as sigma, you keep on applying. So every time number of inversion goes down, right? Yeah. So after, so what is the maximum number of inversions? Can anybody tell? If the array size is NC2 or n choose 2.
NC2.
So yeah, I'll use the term choose 2. So n choose 2. Okay. So n choose 2. So after so many iterations in this argument, this is an argument, this is not an algorithm. So you'll end up with a permutation where the number of inversions is 0. That is, it's an empty set, right? Because it's finite, right? So after n choose 2, at most n choose 2 steps, you're going to get an permutation whose inversion, number of inversions is 0. And what is the condition? Cost only decreases every time, right? Strictly decreases. So in other words, the last permutation that you get, whose cost will be less than the original permutation that you started with, which is sigma. That is cost of eta. Let's call this as eta. So cost of eta is at most cost of sigma. But now what is a permutation with the no inversions? Sorted array, right? So since it has no inversions, it must correspond to an ascending ordering of S. So what we have proved is for any permutation, if there is at least one inversion, the cost corresponding to that permutation must be greater than cost corresponding to cost corresponding to the permutation which is ascending order of the array. Okay, so that is, so this is usually the argument. Okay, so in the textbook you don't even see this number of inversions said. Okay, so it just says, okay, repeat this. So there is a lack of rigor, but like I said, I mean, that is, the rigor is kept under the carpet. It is understood that, okay, this can be made a completely rigorous argument. So now, is this rigorous enough?
So we can recursively say though, if one changing one inversion reduces the cost, we will get a reduced cost all in all from sigma to the sorted array.
Yeah, so this is a convincing argument, right? It's a convincing argument, but unfortunately, it's not a complete rigorous argument. Okay. See, it does not fit into any of our statements, right? So any of our proof techniques. It's neither a direct proof nor a proof by contradiction, nor it's an inductive proof. So it does not fit in anywhere. So technically it is not at a complete proof, but it's a convincing argument, of course. Because we know that there are only finitely many inversions. So if you repeatedly apply, so every time you're reducing the number of inversions by 1. So if you repeatedly do this, whatever the maximum number of inversions many times, which is n choose 2, you're going to get an array, a permutation where the number of inversions is going to be 0. Hence and cost keeps on reducing every time. Okay. So yeah, so I'll just demonstrate one way of making it completely formal. Okay, it's a very standard way of making very formal. You can also use induction. So instead of induction, I'll use something very similar to induction. Okay, so yeah, so I'll spend next 10 minutes on this. I mean, this is the only time I'm doing this, just to demonstrate. Okay, so you should know that, okay, the level of rigor is this much. But in future, we'll be making similar statements. Okay, so invariance, there will be some invariant instead of this inversions. There could be some other invariant. It keeps on decreasing. It could be a potential function. You must have seen such arguments in your first algorithms course. So something which keeps on reducing. So here you can imagine this as a potential function. It keeps on decreasing. So it cannot be negative. So hence the smallest possible value is 0, which is when the array is sorted according to that permutation. And we know that every time when you decrease the potential, you're also decreasing the cost. So wherever you end up, should have cost smaller than the permutation that you have started with. Okay, so that is the kind of argument. So let's quickly make it completely formal. Okay, and yeah, that is all. So I'll just spend a few minutes on it. Okay. So one way is, like I said, induction. So how do you induct on? So if you are to use induction, what do you induct on? I mean, I'm talking about specifically about this case.
The number of inversions.
Okay, that's a good choice. Yes, number of inversions. You would induct on number of inversions, right? Yeah. So I'll not give the inductive argument, something very close, okay, which is usually done in most of algorithms or even in graph theory, okay. So basically taking the minimal counterexamples approach, okay. So what is the claim? So what we wanted is, so let's see. So let's write down the claim in a different language. So let pi be such that s of pi I is less than or equal to s of pi I plus 1 for all I. Okay. So that means pi is sorted. Okay. So revised statement is the following. So for all sigma such that there exists I less than j s pi I, sorry, there exists I such that s pi I greater than s pi I plus 1, we have cost of pi, okay, sorry, I'm so used to using pi for permutation that I by default just write it. Should be sigma here. Cost of pi is less than cost of sigma. Is this statement equivalent to the claim that we made? So we said ascending order is the one which minimizes, right? So what does it mean? That means if you take any other order which is not corresponding to ascending order, this is exactly the condition. There exists some successive inversion. Okay. That means cost of that permutation should be greater than cost of pi, because pi is the one which minimizes, or pi is one of those which minimizes the cost. Okay. So this statement is equivalent. I've just written it in a different language. That's all. I mean, I would say more formal language. Okay, so now how do we prove? Well, we can prove it by induction on the number of inversions. Instead, we can make a proof by contradiction. Okay. So proof. So suppose sigma be a counterexample. So let's call this statement as A to A such that number of inversions in sigma is the minimum. Okay. So what do I mean by that? When I say sigma is a counterexample to A, let's elaborate here. That means sigma
will
is
be greater.
Yeah, so no, cost of sigma will be smaller than pi, right? Or smaller than or equal to pi. So sigma is not sorted, and cost of sigma is less than or equal to cost of pi. So we are fixating on this pi, okay? So pi is a sorted order, okay? Is one of the sorted orders if there are multiple. But what we are saying is, okay, suppose the statement is false, then we'll choose a minimal counterexample, okay? Minimal in what sense? Minimal, so we choose a counterexample to this statement. Counterexample means what? Sigma is not a sorted order and cost of sigma is comparable to that of pi. That is, cost of sigma is equal to or less than or equal to cost of pi, okay? It could be strictly less than also. But what is the assumption that we make? Among all such sigma, we'll take the one which minimizes the number of inversions. Breaking ties arbitrarily. There could be multiple permutations with the same number of inversions which satisfy this condition. We'll take one arbitrary. It does not matter. Okay, so break ties arbitrarily. Okay, so now what we do? So now we can use our previous argument. So let sigma prime be as above, as in the previous argument. I mean, we are actually improvising that previous argument. What do we have with respect to sigma prime? One, cost of sigma prime less than cost of sigma, which is less than or equal to cost of pi, which is a sorted order. Second, number of inversions of sigma prime, it's one less than, right? So I'll just write it's less than number of inversions of sigma. Okay. So are we in trouble? Is there a contradiction already?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what is the contradiction?
So we have assumed that number of inversion in sigma is the minimum, but now we are getting that number of inversion in sigma prime is the minimum.
And sigma prime is also a counterexample, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we have is sigma prime is also a counterexample. Counterexample to A, but number of inversions of sigma prime is strictly less than number of inversions of sigma. So our assumption that there is a counterexample must be at fault, right? Because if there was a counterexample, there is one with the minimum number of inversions. Okay, so that is what we chose sigma as. But however, with the previous argument, what we got is a sigma prime, which is also a counterexample, but it has smaller number of inversions, violating the assumption on minimality of sigma. So violates the minimality of sigma. So it's a contradiction. So hence our assumption that the statement is false, that is there is a counterexample, is incorrect. Okay, it's basically the same argument that we did, but we are making it completely rigorous. Now this is a proof by contradiction. Okay, so you have a statement here. We have proven it by contradiction. How did we do? So we assume that the statement was wrong. That means there is a counterexample. Only thing that we did is we took a minimum counterexample. Why can we take that? Because the number of inversions is a finite number, right? It's a number from 1 to n choose 2. So we have just assumed that any subset of natural numbers, there is a minimum. Okay, so you might have heard of this, right? This is well ordering principle. So only thing that we have used is well ordering principle. Okay, so this is just another, I would say, dual version of induction. It's essentially like induction. Okay, so only thing is we have taken minimum counterexample. Whereas for induction, how do you do? I just leave it to you to argue it inductively. So you can argue on induction now, right? So the same argument can also be applied via induction. But what would be the statement that you would prove?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, I have a small doubt here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, since we have a violation,
Mhm.
is the assumption that sigma is minimum violated, or is the assumption that sigma is the minimum, uh, there is no sigma such that it is less than pi violated? Sorry, there
No,
is
no,
a
no.
sigma that it is less
So
than pi violated.
yeah, that's a good point. The statement that is violated is this is minimum. So you got a permutation which also satisfies the condition, that is violates A, okay, but with a smaller number of inversions. See, what we did was, when we chose sigma, we chose the one with the smallest number of possible inversions, right? This invariant is the smallest value. But through the construction, what we got is a sigma prime which also satisfies, which is also violating A, which is also a counterexample to A, okay, such that the number of inversions is smaller. So our assumption that number of inversions in sigma is the minimum must be wrong. So that is what is being violated. But how did we end up violating it? Assuming that A is false. So hence A must be true. That is all.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one way of arguing. Like I said, you can also argue induction. Okay. So like one of your classmates suggested, right? Induction on the number of inversions. It's again a similar argument. How will you go about it? So by induction, assume that, so say number of inversions is, so for all permutations, so when I say for all sigma, such that number of inversions is say at most k, the statement is true. Now you consider a permutation with number of inversions k plus 1. With this process, you will get a sigma prime whose number of inversions is k plus 1 minus 1, which is k. Okay. So hence the statement is true. That is, cost of sigma prime is at most cost of pi. Now, by the construction, cost of sigma is, cost of sigma prime is at most cost of sigma. So hence cost of pi is at most cost of sigma. So you prove this statement. It's basically a dual argument. Okay. So what I mean is, so whenever you see such statements, right, in algorithms, you will always see this. Okay. That is, you repeatedly apply this argument until the invariant becomes 0 or empty set in this case. That the hidden behind this statement is this argument. Okay. Either using a minimal counterexample or using induction. That is something that you need to know. I also, I mean, as and when we go ahead, I'll just point out. Okay. So you can try this minimal counterexample or induction argument. I will not be doing this detail for every example later on. Okay. So every algorithm. When I make such a statement, that is, if repeatedly apply so that the invariant is maintained, that is, cost keeps on reducing. Invariant reduces and the cost keeps on reducing. Okay, so then that gives you the required bound. That is, the sorted array should have smaller cost compared to the unsorted array. That is sigma here. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
so the thing we did in this slide, a more rigorous argument slide,
Mhm.
it was the proof of the previous slide second statement.
Yeah, essentially that. You're right.
Okay.
I mean, in the sense that I'm just making this portion rigorous, that's all. See, this construction we used, right? Construction of sigma prime we used, but when we say repeating this, so this is not a mathematically precise statement, right? This particular is a second statement. Okay. But you will see most of algorithms textbooks, they will use this kind of statements.
Hello,
So
sir.
we just, yeah.
Sir, how did we reach to the cost argument? I mean, we assumed an array which has a smallest number of inversions. So what we got another array which has smaller number of inversions than this array. So
Yes.
so our assumption that inversion is in sigma minimum was violated. So did we argue like that we can find more arrays than sigma whose cost is less than sigma? So there exists no array whose cost is less than pi. I mean, how did we extend it?
No, I didn't understand your last statement. So what do you mean by did we find more arrays?
we got the argument that inversions in sigma prime is less than inversions in sigma. So that means cost in sigma prime is less than cost in
No,
sigma.
no, not that means. So we are, by construction, we know that cost of sigma prime is smaller than cost of sigma. That is our construction, right? That we have argued here. This argument
So,
basically says cost of sigma prime is less than cost of sigma.
so I was
Yeah.
asking, how did we reach the conclusion that there exists no array which has a cost less than the
So that
original
yeah,
binary?
yeah, that is because we are reaching a contradiction, right? So what is a contradiction to? So we have assumed that sigma is a counterexample, that is counterexample to this, that is this condition is satisfied. Sigma is not sorted, as well as, I mean, permutation corresponding to sigma is not sorted, as well as cost of sigma is at most the cost of the sorted array, sorted order, that is pi. Okay. But
Okay, sir.
among these, we have chosen a sigma. So if there is one such sigma, right, surely there will be a sigma where the number of inversions is a minimum. So we just considered that. But in our previous construction, we got a hold of sigma prime, whose cost is less than cost of sigma. Hence, it also satisfies this condition.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the number of inversions, right? So the number of inversions in sigma prime is smaller than number of sigma inversions in sigma.
Yes, sir.
So sigma prime is also a counterexample to A with a smaller number of inversions. Okay. So
Yes.
there is one corner case which I didn't discuss. So when number of inversions is equal to 1, what happens?
We won't get any better.
No, we are getting a sorted array already, right? So sigma
Yes.
prime is a sorted array. So it already violates. So you already know that this statement is false, right? So that is cost of pi is less than cost of sigma, but our assumption was cost of sigma is less than or equal to cost of pi. That was one corner case I didn't really discuss. Okay, so apart from that corner case, but even in the corner case, I mean, what we get is a sorted array of smaller cost, which is a contradiction to this statement. So otherwise, what we are going to get is contradiction to this statement that among the counterexamples, sigma has the smallest number of inversions, which is not true because we got another counterexample whose number of inversions is smaller than number of inversions in sigma. Okay.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is just for the sake of understanding. I mean, we will not be repeating this. Like I said, I mean, I'll not be doing this rigorous argument always. But whenever I make such statements, that we should know that there is such a underlying rigorous argument. See, most of the textbook also they avoid repeating such things, right? Usually, such rigorous statements are taught in most of the discrete maths courses. Maybe in algorithm course they might do it once, but after that, usually you see in textbooks they don't. A whole of this is written in one line. That's all. Okay, so yeah. Okay,
So,
we'll stop. Yeah, yeah.
sir, in the proof, suppose we assume that suppose sigma is a counter example to A such that number of inversion is minimum,
Yes.
and then suppose we take that number of inversion is minimum, it means that number of inversions is 0.
No. When I say minimum, I mean, so see, we are just assuming that it is the statement is false, right? That means the number of inversions cannot be 0 when I say minimum,
Okay.
because the array is not sorted, right, with respect to sigma. It has to be. If the number of inversions is 0, then the array is sorted.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's not a counterexample. So
Yes, sir.